Okay, so this is a 3D code, and this will be very kind of informative and introductory tutorial just to let people know more about this application. I think it's a very interesting application. There are pros and cons for using this application. There are divided opinions about whether you use 3D code or not. However, most of the people will put like some other applications on top of 3D code, like a ZBrush or I don't know, Substance Painter. But actually, let us talk about a few facts about 3D code. And now 3D code is a very powerful application by my opinion. So you can actually use one of the starting modes, but apart from ZBrush and apart from for example, Substance Painter, this application can actually do a high poly sculpting, but it can also do like a retopo. It can also do a UV texturing, manual or automatic UV texturing, and it can also do like a texture painting, like fully PBR workflow texture painting. And if you're considering like to kind of maybe buying the application, then instead of buying a ZBrush and then buying like Substance Painter, like ZBrush, it's one purchase, but actually I think it's pretty much same price like its 3D code professional version. But then if you need to go to buy like, I don't know, a Substance Painter for texturing, you will pay this on monthly basis for the Adobe and so on and so forth. Now this is like a application where you can do all your stuff like concepting or creating the model. You can actually then do the retop of the model, do the UVs of the model, and then do the texture painting in the model, as well as like to do like baking from high poly to low poly, even the matches from the third-party softwares, and also like to do a retopology in the other software and have high poly from the other software and do the baking. And you can do this in a single application. So this is one of the first pluses to a 3D code, because you can finish all your model from scratch, from concepting to retopo, UVing, and texturing within the single application. Now I'll just kind of go for voxel sculpting. You can kind of go to do a UV. You can do just UV mapping, painting the textures, painting the displacement maps, or up-res your geometry, and so on and so forth. But let's go like to the basics first. Now, the other huge plus about 3D code, now we have like paint room where we can do the texture painting. And if you take a look at this now, it's very similar to Photoshop, very organized interface. On the left side you have your painting tools, here are the layers. Now you can have like the smart materials here, the stencils, and also if you have like texture, you can have like UVs, you can view it in the texture editor. Now I don't have any model present here. And there's a lot of smart materials, and you can create the smart materials of your own. However, the smart materials in code are actually chosen like very wisely, and I really like how they created the software, because like it kind of gives you like it covers the 80 to 90% of all situations that you can kind of have just with the default materials. Now you have like a tweak room where you can tweak your geometry, retopo room, the UV room, the sculpt room. Okay, so and also you can render your things and do not underestimate this render from 3D Code. Apart from some other application, it is very powerful. Now it also includes, if you installed like non-commercial version of Renderman, you can render your models in Renderman, but I prefer the 3D Code hardware because it's very cool, and because also if you going to go for the export settings, you can export very high resolution render even for printing. So this is like 19,200 pixels by 11,470 pixels of resolution. So it's kind of huge render that, and it's rendered pretty fast comparing if you want to render something from Maya or some other 3D applications, even in Redshift. For that kind of, for that file sizes, it won't go like that fast. That's going to happen in the 3D Code. Now let us try to do some models. Now what you need to know before we start, the 3D Code is actually voxel based software. So what does it mean? It means that the size does matter. So for example, if I want to create like some primitives here, now I'll just apply this and add this, and if I press W, you can see that I have like moderate or very low poly number. I have like very low poly count. So now if I now delete this model or maybe create another one, let's create another one. Sorry, I'm just kind of going to undo this, and let me create a larger model. Like now, if we hit apply, you can see that will kind of going to take time to calculate, and you can see that the larger model is having greater resolution. So now I'll just undo this and also try to create even larger model, and it's kind of going to take ages, to create. Now because it contains like more voxels, or it's denser resolution, so you really need to pay attention if you want to start to sculpting code. The size does matter. And now most likely, okay, actually it made this, or maybe not. Yeah, so it wasn't able even to make the object of this size. Okay, so now this is the first thing that you need to kind of pay attention to. So you start with a small object, and this is a concept that you kind of going to, okay, just let me add a new file, something happened. And this is the thing that you need to actually pay attention to. Now I'll just apply this, and you can see now you can change the resolution of the object if you want to, for example, keep the size of the object, but you can increase the resolution. You can do it like here. So these are your sculpting layers, and if I click on this grid icon, you can see that I can subdivide it 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, and so on and so forth. So okay, now there is a other option how I can do this. Just let me use some other tool. Now I can use like a resample plus. So, and this is pretty much the same thing that I'm going to get like by clicking on this grid here, but also I can actually type the exact or approximate number of polys, like I don't know, 64,000 for an example, and apply that. Okay, Or maybe if I'm kind of having like object which is too dense, like 2 million polygons, I can just kind of lower it down to 64,000 for an example, and actually I'll get much less polys. Now also there's a kind of lot of tools here. Now I'll just take, these are some kind of adjustment tools. Now if you want to size the brush in 3D Code, right click, I'm pressing the right click left and right, and holding and pressing the right click but dragging up and down is to increase the brush. Now navigation is left mouse button in the empty space, middle mouse button in the empty space, and right mouse button in the empty space. Or you can use Alt as well if you are my user, so you kind of actually used to get this option of interaction and so on and so forth. So this is the view. Now you can actually adjust how you want to view your images, depends on what you want to export here, and W is switching between the wireframe modes. So now also here now I'll just kind of use this move tool, so you can see you can have like tools here and some other like details here for the tools. Now you can use the symmetry, so if you press S you can choose the axis of symmetry, and then you can start to work with this. Okay, now what is also very important about 3D Code are the actual alpha brushes. So now for an example, these are the alphas in this section of the screen. So now I have like this default alpha, and now if we change this alpha channel, you can see that it actually kind of gives a different shape to the brush. Different shape to the brush. And now if I try to drag this, I just kind of went out of the tool. You can see that comparing to this and comparing to this alpha, the tool is going to behave quite differently. So this is a drag tool, so it's not a sculpting tool. But you can see now it's going to behave quite differently. Okay, now I'll just try to do same thing with the different alphas, so that you can maybe perceive the difference. So it is a complete different result. Okay, you can see this. So these alpha thingies are very important, and it can help you like get a completely different shapes. Which I kind of like very much. And you can get like very toony sometimes and stylized form, depends on the alpha that you use. Okay, even for the drag tool. So I'm not using a sculpting tool, I'm just dragging these guys. Now I'll just go back to this tool now. So for, and this is something which is kind of very kind of basic. Now also the shift is universal, like smoothing tool, and you can really drag these guys like the way you want it. Now I'll just kind of resample this because I have like too many voxels, and I'll just kind of resample this to, I don't know, 16,000 polygons. Okay, now. And this is the way about the code, like you start with just, because apart from ZBrush, actually the code really needs to calculate the brushes, so it's not 2.5D thingy, it's kind of constantly 3D, and sometimes it will take a longer time to process the brushes. Okay, so I don't know, maybe I'll just kind of resample this. Now what you also need to know, the code has like different types of tools. Now it has a surface tool, and you can find this tool like more precise. Now if I use a pinch tool, surface tool are modifying surface vertices instead of volume. This approach works much faster than the voxel based sculpting, but modification of the surface leads to polygon stretching. So if you feel that the surface is stretched too much, press enters to apply changes and transform surface back to voxels. Okay, so this is something that we need to have like in mind. But you can see, so let's use like a pinch tool. Now we have a pinch tool here in the voxel set of tools. Okay, and you can see I'm getting like a quite different result with this pinch tool and with this pinch tool. So now and you can really use this tool if you need a precision, in your work. Now also there are a couple of other things that you need to know about this surface tools. Actually the code, now with the control, you can just actually invert the tool action. Maybe I can kind of, so that you can see how precise this can be. And I really like this tool. Now I'll just kind of, now you can also have like a couple of things to adjust this, so you can either invert tool to have it inverted by default, or you can actually add a steady stroke. Steady stroke, just like in Mudbox for an example. Which is kind of very, very nice. Now I'll just turn this like steady stroke, turn this steady stroke off, sorry. And one thing I also like, that I like with code like very much, it's really good to work just with mouse. So there is no tablet needed. And actually I did kind of my work in 3D code without using a tablet. And I also think it's a way better. It's not kind of you don't have that type of precision and maybe sense that everything goes like that is so controllable like in a ZBrush. But if you kind of get in the tools a bit more, you can see you'll be able much easier to get, especially like a very stylized form, way better and much precise and more stylized than in ZBrush itself. It's a different concept. It's a totally like software that was meant differently. So now this is very cool, and but also if you want to work like this, there is also, and sometimes it's very important to kind of get this, and there are operation which will switch you automatically to this mode, and this is like a surface mode. Now we are painting in voxels. Okay, now we are painting in voxels now. but actually now there is a surface mode. Now if you can see object is in voxel presentation, press this button to transform to surface representation. Surface presentation work faster but with limited functionality. Now we have been switched to a surface representation, and you can see now, I'll just undo this, and you can see now that I'm getting like a triangulation here, which is kind of very similar to what we're getting, like for example in the Sculptris or something like that. And now you can see that we lose the voxel tools and that we have like a surface tools here. Now there's a lot of interesting tools here. So the first thing, that these tools are kind of more precise. Now we have like this flatten tool, so where we can actually flatten the surface, or a chisel tool, which is very nice. So that kind of help you with this. And you can see that we are not kind of adding or actually approximating the voxels, but actually we are actually just moving the polygons. Okay, now also there's a couple of very interesting tools like this absolute. So now if I cross this tool, it will also kind of retain the height of an object, and often retain the height here. So you can do stuff like that, which is kind of very cool if you want to do like the belts or other type of props here. Very, very interesting thing. And also now this is like the extrude thing, extrude. Now you can also use this alphas with the extrude tool. Now you have it like in the voxel option as well, but actually now, well, this is an interesting one. Okay, now but you can also, if you want to go back to the voxels, you need to go back to voxels. Now it will give you a poly count. This whole surface which is sculpted can be recalculated, so it will maybe increase the number of polygons, and now we can switch between the voxel and the surface type. But I generally want to prefer staying in the voxel environment and use surface tool wherever I can. And then in the final stages of my modeling, actually I will switch to the surface tool. So now also there are a lot of shaders here, like a real-time shaders. Okay, and these shaders are kind of very cool, like a skin shader for an example. Now it looks maybe ugly, but now when you start to rendering, you can see this shader is having like a subsurface scattering, and it's very nice. It can be used for a skinning, for skin representation, for concept art, and so on and so forth. So let's go back to sculpting for an example, and let us go back to some other tools. There's a lot of tools, and maybe in later tutorials we'll go one by one, but actually I just want to show you like what you can do with this. Oh, this is like very, very interesting. Sorry. Now you can see, yeah, but you can't control it now, and it has like this thing like snapping with the symmetry, but then again, if you want to control it, you have like pretty much same tools like Z spheres in the ZBrush, so but actually much more controllable, I will say, like here in the code. Now, and actually you can use it like this with the right click, and then you can kind of place it, which is actually very, very nice. Now with the right click, now keep in mind so you can kind of make this interpolation straight with the right click. Now I'm having here an issues with my mouse, like right click on my mouse, and you can now see how the interpolation of this field will be calculated, hemisphere or a spike, I don't know, like spike. So or like, I don't know, well, let me use a hemisphere and I'll just kind of narrow it down. It's kind of getting the better sense of control here. Okay, and I'll just apply it. So we'll kind of consider this tool later, but now you can see it's kind of very, very, very cool. Now, if you take a look at this now, there's also way after you, for example, finish your sculpting. Now, this switch, these are the shortcuts on the numeric keyboard, like 4, 8, 6, 2, 5. But 5 on the numeric keyboard is switching from orthographic to perspective position, and actually you don't have to use these keyboards except this one, 5, and with the Shift Alt. So Shift Alt, it will snap to nearest orthographic projection, and when you press 5, that will in general kind of, you can work in this kind of orthographic workflow. Now here there is an option to do a retopo in 3D code. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. Now you can go to the retopo room and you can use one of the retopology tool. So like, I don't know, like points, faces. So then you can actually start to retopologize your thing, like with the right click, and then do here and here. Okay, and you can actually start to do like a retopology. Now if you press Control, you can subdivide this and this. So pretty useful, similar like Quadro tool in Maya. And these are the tools for a manual topology, or I don't know, if you already have like one polygon, like so. Here with the quads, you can just click here and actually continue working on it. So very nice, very cool. Then you can switch like here. Okay, there is a brush tool if you want to move these guys and rearrange them. So you can do like a manual retopo. So we are still in the same software, so we didn't have to go elsewhere to do like a manual retopology on this guy. I can also delete the polygons if I want to, delete the polygons. Okay, but there's also a couple of auto topology modes now. So auto topo, and this one will maybe last for ages. Now I want this to be like, you just type like in pretty desired poly count, and then you will try to tell code to calculate this. Now you can type, you can paint now if you want some more density to be in some part of the mesh, but actually most likely the best results will be if you just go for the auto topology. Now don't expect too much for that. It's very good for simple assets, especially for game assets. Don't expect too much on characters. So in this case, I need to admit like that the zero mesher is kind of doing like a better job on this one, but actually it does not turn that bad at all. Now you can see this is like a auto topology, okay, and it turned out like quite nice. Now I'll just undo this and maybe try to do some other things. Now let me maybe change the real-time shader here. I'll just go back to Sculpt, and now these shaders actually can be tweaked and changed, and you can create your own real-time shader from scratch, which is kind of awesome. But let us say that we kind of like maybe this one. Okay, and now you can go and edit current object shader settings. So you can change the texture here. You can change a bulge intensity. So like this, and actually cavity intensity and color and metalness and all that kind of stuff. So let's say I want to have like this shader and reuse it later in my texturing, for example. So now you can see here in the shaders, you will have like a lot of other presets. Okay, so a lot of other shaders that can be kind of add here, like metals, so on and so forth. Now, okay, and let me see that I want to use, let me say that I want to use a this one shader. So now I'll just try to go to do the retopo, so I can do it like from here as well, but I prefer to go like to retopo room and then actually right click here and do auto topo, and I can do like auto topo for per pixel painting. Okay, so I'll just click here, I'll set like 3000 polygons, and I'll just press OK now, and that will do the auto topo, and I'll just say next, next. Okay, okay, so now getting like something that looks kind of strange, but now since this details from my sculpting, it's going to be baked, and it's going to bake like a normal map from what I've sculpted, but also it's going to bake like a all the other properties of the shader. Now just keep in mind that the bump will not be transferred from the texture, the bump will actually be transferred from the from the sculpting itself. Now it is important to avoid penetration, so something like this. So I need to extract this, and also we can preview the inner shell, and actually this is how we can. Now the inner shell, it's important to actually remain inside the object. Okay, so you can also turn on the ghosting so that you can see preview inner shell. Can we like type like a minus value? Okay, so yeah. No, this is inconvenient. Okay, so now this is more like it. Now I'm concerned about these kind of things at the end of the spikes. So let's say maybe something like this. And now I'm also kind of worried about this this options. Okay, maybe around the mouth, and here around the eye. So let's say that we were kind of going like this, and now this is the outer shell. Okay, now, and let's press OK. Now you can actually choose which type of normals you want. So I'll just choose like Maya for this occasion. And now the outer mapping. So this means that actually the code will generate the outer mapping. Now you can choose how the smooth will go for these objects for the UV coordinates. Now it's not relevant for this kind of part of the presentation, so I'll just click OK. And now what are actually we going to create here is actually I'm just going to turn off the high poly. And now if you take a look, what we are having here is our topology. So I'll just press W. Now you can see this is our retopologized model with real-time shader baked on it. Okay, so now if I go to the UV room, you can see that the code has been doing like a UVs here. Now don't worry about these UVs. Actually, I kind of never, even though when I imported this either into the Unreal or Maya or something, I actually never had any issues with the seams when I used like the auto UVs from the code. And now this looks really awesome because it takes kind of no effort to create it, no effort to do the UVs, and no effort to bake it. But you can see, well, I cannot rely on the UV shader. I can also, I want to actually do something else with it to paint my textures. Well, yeah, then you can go to the paint room, and actually you can use one of the smart materials, whatever. So let's use, I don't know, one of these. Let's use this one. Okay, so now this material is actually asked for a curvature calculation and ambient occlusion map, and the code will do this for us automatically. So maybe I'll kind of add a new paint layer, and now you can see I can now, I'll just press W. Now I can paint on top of this one. Now you can say, yeah, but it's the ugly color, so it doesn't matter. I'll just kind of go to Smart Material Editor and actually going to change the color. Okay. So I can just use a modulate, and then I'll just kind of pick up the color here, whatever, and you can see now I'll get this color from my brush, but actually I want something more like a white, I think. Okay. Well, it does not turn that well. So, but you can also, you can see you can browse your texture for the color, modulate, and also you can also change the noise, and you can see you have like certain amount of procedurality in this material, so it's not like pretty much like the substance. Okay. Now also you can choose, like, for example, what you want to paint here. Now, so I don't want to paint depth, for example, for this shader, so I can turn out the normal map, and now I'm just painting the diffuse and specular. Okay. Now also I can use the different brushes here for painting the materials, like maybe this one. Okay. Now in this case, maybe I can use the depth if I want to kind of paint this on top of this model, which is kind of nice. But also instead of brushes, so I can use this kind of regular brush here, I can maybe use a stencil. Okay. So on this kind of thing, now I can use the stencil for painting. Now by default it is cubic mapping, so this is why I'm getting like a bit of an odd result here, but also I can choose like this to be from camera. Now and also maybe I'll increase this pattern size, so now you can see it actually projects, so I can move the pattern here, it actually now projects from the camera. Okay, I should be careful here. Now let us use maybe a cube mapping, but actually I want to make like maybe a different tile. Now here you can actually import like anything from your library, anything which is black and white or alpha channel. So I'll just say K texture, so it may going to take some time to load because it's not a default one, but here default these default stencils you can actually use, and actually you can use them to paint over, so something like this. So very, very nice. Okay, now or maybe like for this example I don't want to paint like a diffuse color, I would like to just paint the specular and the depth, so why not? Okay, so maybe I don't know, like so, whatever. So now in terms of creating games, like the people that are using this, like in the industry, most likely they're using it into the game, within the game industry now. And the one of the biggest plus for 3D code is actually the 3D code exporting options. Now I can see you can render this one, like you can save image, whatever. Now if you want to export this, what I figured out so far, I really gave a chance like to a ZBrush and Substance Painter, but actually now the most convenient part about 3D code is exporting like to other applications. So and it's the fastest workflow that I kind of have experienced and pretty much straightforward. So now for an example, if I kind of go to export objects and textures, now I have like a bunch of presets here, and now I can actually export for the Arnold IOR workflow, Arnold standard workflow, which will pretty good be for the Redshift as well, because we don't have like a dedicated Redshift preset so far. But also PBR, specular, metalness, and so on and so forth. Now, but also what is the best thing of all, it is that now if I export this to Unreal, it'll just look exactly the same like in 3D code. I mean, it will have maybe some different options when it comes to light, but actually now I can save this like I don't know, and now if I kind of save this, now it will export everything. Now I'll just press export. And then we can see what we are actually getting there. So maybe, I don't know, I can start the Unreal. And I don't know, I'll just create like a, I don't know, new first person template, okay. And I'll just create a project now, and I'll just try to import this asset. Okay, so let's go for a import, and actually this is okay. So it's not pretty much that straightforward, but actually I need to add the rest of the textures. So it has been imported like with a diffuse texture. Now I can just just drag these other textures directly into here. And now, for example, now I can add like, I don't know, well, I don't have something in the ambient occlusion, but let me go with the roughness map. So I'll just plug this into the roughness, apply it. Now this is my metalness map. Just plug this to a metallic. Okay. Let me just scale this so that we can see it like a bit better. Okay, and then I'll just drag like the normal map. I'll just save this. Okay, this is like an ambient occlusion map, even though we're not going to have much there, but I will connect it like anyway. Okay, and actually now I'm just going to actually try to add, well, let's leave it like this. So let me see it, how it looks here. Well, pretty much, I mean, it's a different lighting here, but pretty much what we have like in 3D code. So just let me kind of scale it. Okay. So without any tweaking, maybe I'll just duplicate this one. So you can see, you can get like the game asset in no time. Well, maybe on this roughness map, we need to kind of change it a bit. Like, but actually then again, the Unreal in general have like the problem with the roughness maps, especially when you export like from substance as well. So you need to add like a multiply node here and maybe a constant node. And let me add like multiply it 2 times. So now it's a bit better, so we can play around with this. But you can see it's pretty much like a minor tweak, and we are getting like a high quality like game asset in no times. So this will conclude this tutorial. So I will having like more tutorials on code, I guess. just to try to see a different techniques, different usage of 3D code in production pipeline. But so far this will be kind of like a basic, let's say, basic overview of a 3D code. So if you're new to the application and you just want to get like quickly into the concept of the application, this is it. So guys, thanks for watching, and see you in the next tutorial. Take care.